significant in every one of these pictures. And I don't know that there's any series where a multitude of actors play totally different characters, but they're all known as one thing, the Bond girls. And ladies and gentlemen, we have the only two actresses to play Bond girls twice. The first Bond girl, Eunice Gayson, and also Octopussy, Maud Adams, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Okay, so let's start with this. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a Bond girl as you go through life after being a Bond girl?
Eunice, do you want to start?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Well, I tell you what. It has been a family. It's been a family. The whole Bond thing, 50 years ago, I can't believe it, and I'm sure you can't, at least I hope you can't. But I mean, it has been, who knew that 50 years ago that it would be still around, never mind as successful as it is now. And I love doing it, and you love seeing it, so long may it continue.
Right. Mary Dowell wrote a book called Bond Girls Are Forever. I like to say Bond Girls are immortal. We will be around for a while, I think.
Is it? But it's a moniker and attachment to your career that you love and embrace. I take it from talking to you earlier.
Personally, I do. Yes, of course. I think for most actresses to be remembered for some of your work at least is rather rare. And to be, although as we have discovered, and I never thought that I'd be a Bond girl for such a long time in people's memory as I have been, but it's been very, very rewarding. And today, it's wonderful to have young men still thinking of you as being the way you used to be.
Not me, no, not at all.
I know, but you're excited.
I wasn't excited when I got this opportunity anyway. Then we're bringing in some Bond girls. Yes! Yes, I do. Now, Eunice, you set up the most famous line in James Bond films. You were the first. You're in a casino scene with Sean Connery, and you say, I believe...
Oh yes, I was right there at the beginning, but originally I was supposed to be playing Miss Moneypenny,
right.
But I had just done a contract with Rogers and Hammerstein to play in The Sound of Music at the Palace Theatre in London, and of course they wouldn't let me go. So I had to regretfully turn that part down. Terence Young, the director, he was adamant that I was going to be in it for some reason. Well, I did know Sean rather well, but that's no excuse. But anyway, he decided to write the small part, the much smaller part, of Sylvia Trench. And it was a running gag, supposed to be. And at that time, they were only planning 6 films, would you believe, and with Sean. And of course, Sean didn't do the first 6. And he left after a few. Terence Young did too, and the whole idea was that the character that I played, we had this running gag going through the first 6, or supposed to be, that we were just going to get to the love scene and really get it together, and maybe get together in the 6th film and perhaps even get married. And that was the idea of it. But the directors coming in didn't want any preconceived ideas, naturally, and that was shelved. So there I was stuck in the Sound of Music. But it was happy.
Well, I think George Lazenby learned that you don't want James Bond getting married.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah. And the line, by the way, was, I admire, I'm going to do it. I'm about to do a British accent, a woman's British accent. I admire your luck, mister. And then he says for the first time, and which has been repeated a zillion times,
Bond, James Bond.
Bond, your first Bond film, the Roger Moore film, which was co-written by my cousin Tom Manckiewicz. What was, where were you in your life that you got in that part?
I was actually still modeling. I started out as a model. I was living in New York, and I had done 3 movies prior to that. One out here called The Crystal Necklace Store with Beau Bridges, and then 2 Canadian films. But I was basically an unknown. And I was going to acting classes in New York, and I was really hoping to get a break. And I got it, and I was both of them. And I actually, I had met Cubby Broccoli out in Pinewood Studios, I think the year before, and wasn't aware that I met him. Because I'd been brought out there by a friend who said, would you like to see the long sets? And I said, sure. And we walked, because they weren't shooting at the time. And I walked through, and I was introduced to some man there, and I said hello and continued on. And when I went for my audition in New York, I found out that Cubby Broccoli told me, well, you know, we met before. And I said, oh, no, we haven't. And he said, yes, we have. And I realized that this was not a good answer, and I'm going to get it for it. But he reminded me where we met, and sure enough, that's how it happened. And I guess he remembered me, which is amazing.
And what was that experience like? Because when Eunice, when you do your Bond, it is the beginning of the series, and they may have planned 6, but who knows how it's going to go.
Yeah.
When you're there, this is the most established, most successful franchise in film.
Right.
What was it madness on set? In the sense of that, you know, you're in something that you know, that you're inexperienced, yet you're in something so big and so important.
Oh, it scared the hell out of me. I remember the first shooting day. Oh, we hadn't even started shooting. We all flew into Bangkok. We were in a big hotel, and we were going for our first press conference, which I thought would be something small. Because that's what I did in my other films. And I walk into this room, and we were on the day house, and there's Roger Moore and Christopher Lee and Brett Eklund and all these people that I just barely met. And we had a room full of reporters from all over the world. And then that's when it really went up to me, and I realized that, oh my God, this is big. And I was very extremely nervous, but Roger, older than them, proved himself to be just a sweetheart. I mean, he was just funny and made everything feel good. And Brett Eklund became a good friend of mine, because she was already, she had a routine, and she's Swedish, and we had this secret language, so she kind of told me how to calm down, how to what to say, and all that. And then we used to sort of talk about Christopher Lee all the time in our Swedish, and then we found out that he spoke English and understood pretty much everything.
What did you say?
Oh well, let's not repeat that.
No, well, I mean, I won't put you on the spot, but believe me, they would love to hear what you said. So then, before I get back here to Eunice, so then, how does it come about? Because, you know, Eunice, you did, you were in Dr. No, and then you were briefly in From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
But then that didn't happen, that they brought anybody back. So how do we get to the point where, Maud, they come back?
Oh gosh, I really don't know. I mean, I was very surprised. I was asked to go to London to test for the part, and I assumed the reason they wanted me there is because they were looking for a new Bond. And I thought it was just a favor to the family who adored him. I mean, it had been wonderful to me, and thought it was a nice opportunity to meet everybody again. And didn't realize they were actually serious about me until I was in the middle of the screening process, and in the shooting process, when they started changing my hair and really turning me into octopus. And I thought, maybe they really are serious. And sure enough, I got the part. And Roger came back, which was really lovely for me.
And so at the time, you thought we were already getting a new Bond, though? That's what
We
the
thought
process
so.
began.
We thought so, but Roger, I guess he wanted more money, of course. And it was a little bit of a game with Cubby and him all the time. I understand, you know, they sort of duked it out over the backgammon table in the end.
Of course, it was over the backgammon table. You know what? Americans. Gayson, cool. So, Eunice, that scene that I was talking about, so your big scene in the casino with Connery, he was, Maud's talking about how she was nervous. This is hard for me to believe because it's James striking Bond. But Sean Connery was nervous.
Well, I think the whole point about Bond and the whole point of Sean playing Bond was that for ages he didn't believe he could do it. And everybody else thought he could. The directors, the producers thought that he could. And he had enough theatre behind him, performances, to draw on. And he grew and grew and grew into the character. And I think you'll all agree that the character that he played, it grew, didn't it?
Yes,
As each film that he did, he grew with it. And this was what was so exciting about the whole thing. As he became to believe that he was Bond, and he could play Bond, he became Bond.
Did he not, though, blow Bond, James Bond?
Absolutely. He was, he was terrified that first day in the studio. He really was. And he could hardly say James Bond. He couldn't do it. And in the end, we had to seek all sorts of subterfuges to get him to relax. So I had to...
Were those subterfuges liquid?
I know that's a highfalutin word, but it's the only word to cover what we had to do, if you know what I mean, to relax him enough to be able to say the actual thing. And after take after take, he finally came out with it. Bond. The name is Bond, James Bond, and it was there. And from then on, he was at home and he never looked back.
Maud, who was the, you got mad at me for asking you this a half hour ago. So I'll do it now in front of you. Who's the best James Bond?
Now, is that, is this even a question? I have to answer that.
But here's why it was great, because when you got mad at me the first time I asked it, which was on television, you were like, you can't ask me that question. And then you said, look, you're loyal. You're a Roger Moore girl. That seems to be
Roger Moore girl, I will always be.
There we go. And I asked you to, and you didn't get mad at me. 1 out of every 2 women usually gets mad at me. Who was the best James Bond for you?
Well, everyone that's played it has brought something new to it, I'm sure you'll agree. But in my heart of hearts, that first impact that Sean made, you think about it, at that time, the British film industry was in recession. And I think Sean single-handedly, and the Bond single-handedly, brought the film industry in Britain up to what it is today, which is really going places and really, really flourishing. Thanks to him, and thanks to the producers of the Bond.
I agree with you, and that's the role that Sean played and James Bond played in sort of reinvigorating the British film industry is well documented. But one thing that gets to the question, and why I like asking the question, was first of all, it's a debate that fans of the series love to have, and it comes from not a place of who was worse, it really comes from who was more awesome, right? And we learned from the trouble that George Lazenby had, which when you go back and look at that film on Her Majesty's Secret Service, I think he's terrific. But at the time, the reaction was, it's not Sean Connery. Nobody can play this except Sean Connery. And then here comes Roger Moore with this intense pressure that we've already seen what it can do. and he changes who Bond is without completely overhauling it. He's still charming, he's still a womanizer, he's still skilled. But what did Roger add to it that made him so successful in this really difficult spot he was in?
Humor.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that I agree with Eunice about all the Bond characters have really been good, and they brought something to the character that's unique for each one of them. But I also think that it's not just that they're different characters, but Bond had to change as times changed. And I think when Roger came in and brought the humor to Bond, it was needed at the time because it was getting a little stale. And all of a sudden you had all this competition from other sort of high stunt movies and whatever. So you need something else to keep it going, and that's what he brought.
And my cousin Tom, who wrote a couple of Bond movies, said just as much that it sort of reinvigorated the writers too. It gave the writers different places to go with characters. Last question for you guys. I think we're Bond fans, as we all are in this room, happy with where the series is now with Daniel Craig. Eunice?
Absolutely. And another thing, as an actress, that happened at that time, hitherto, before, I like to use the word hitherto.
I was going to say, gotta be the first time the festival hitherto was
Hitherto, the whole idea of a British actress on the screen, we had to wear, are you ready for this? And I mean this is true, you had to wear a rose down your bosom.
Also pussy, the first time.
Oh, I thought I keep doing it again. But anyway, it makes you know, that we're all family here.
And then Maud Adams said, I never had a rose down my bosom.
You know, and English actresses, you know, were always frightfully like that. You know what I mean? And always, you know, terribly nice and terribly predictable, and it was so boring to play them. And Bond was the first time that we were allowed to be sexy. We were allowed to be who we were. And suddenly the world woke up to the fact that English women, British women, I must say British because there'll be riots at home, they all discovered, for the first time I think, because they'd never seen it before, and they suddenly decided that British women weren't half bad.
No.
I have to say, Swedish volleyball, there are about 4 of us.
Yes, there are.
No, there are 5 of us.
I don't think we ever doubted that Swedish women were sexy.
You know, it's already there. We didn't need that.
Ladies and gentlemen, to sexy Swedish women and sexy British women, Maud Adams,